Hey everyone, Thibaut here. Super happy to be there for the second episode of Voices of Support. Super happy to see that we have traction coming and more people signing up to participate. Super happy about that. And today I'm lucky to be with André, or actually I'm saying it in French here. Do you say it like also André like this or
Actually, I don't. I just say it Andre. No,
André? Yeah,
no
okay.
little
Yeah,
accent
sorry.
at the end.
So maybe you will catch me saying it really French way because that I'm French and I'm not gonna hide it. And yeah, and André, I think we have a really similar path actually. He started on the front lines, became a leader, done a bunch of stuff. He has been actually with in the customer support industry for longer than I do. So I hope I will learn a lot today. And yeah, so the idea is to learn from you, André. So I think first thing first, I will let you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit more about where you're coming from, and who you are, basically.
Yeah, Andre Linde. Notice I don't say it the French way. I've never said it that way. But yeah, I've been in support pretty much my entire career. I think upwards of 15, 16 years now. So pretty much almost my entire professional support career has been doing front lines, tier one, tier two, some management. But yeah, I've done it. I've done a lot of it. I remember when I first started support, everything was still on prem. And so that was, it was really difficult sometimes to troubleshoot things because you're like, okay, what environment do you have set up? And so when the move to SaaS eventually did happen, it did make things a lot easier. But I also think it made stuff a lot harder just in terms of the kind of people you were supporting. So, but yeah, I've done a little bit of everything along the way.
That's nice. Nice. So you started as an agent. It's interesting. I've never thought about it before SaaS, like how it was to actually support on-prem because I was lucky enough to join at the later stage. But interesting. I think something that I've seen, I don't remember if it's on your LinkedIn or something, but I think you shared somewhere that when you were an agent and a team lead, you were able to actually reach super high level of CSAT. I remember seeing somewhere
Yeah,
97, 98 or something. Um,
yeah.
was it something that was important for you, like to how, if you look back at what your job as an agent was, like what was the most important, like in terms of achievement for you as an agent, as a person, like was motivating you to come back every day and do this job, which is not easy every day, I would say.
Yeah. I just put up a LinkedIn post where I said, "Do you want to do this job? Why? Do you want to get yelled at every day?"
Yeah,
So
yeah,
why do people come
yeah.
back to this? When I first started my career, I think CSAT was a big driver for me, just because
Hmm.
it's a metric that you can easily follow, right? But then I think the thing that really drove me is this more: am I making people happy? Like, am I like adding value? So CSAT was a good way to look at that. Honestly, one of the things that kept me going was a bit of healthy competition within my team to see who could get the highest CSAT, who could close the most tickets, who could get the most recognition. So, for me, it was just kind of trying to gamify the whole experience. Because if you just go to work every day and you don't have something to like drive you, it's just boring, right? So it was just those little things that I could try to like gauge myself based off other people, say, okay, how am I doing against everyone else? And that what kind of got me going in day after day.
And was this like organized by the management? Was it something like structured, or was it more like a almost internal competition that was born by itself by healthy competition between the agents, or was it something that was restructured?
At some companies, it's just our own doing where you would say, okay, you closed these many tickets today. Can I beat you?
Hmm.
Or I took these many tickets. At one of my more recent companies, we actually, on a monthly basis, we would do a presentation for all support and we'd look at metrics and then we would see who had the most chat tickets, who had the most support tickets, CSAT, and stuff like that. And so it was something that the managers showed, but I think everyone enjoyed it just because you could gauge yourself against it. So that it was there was no reward or anything, but it was just kind of bragging rights, honestly. And
Yeah, yeah, okay.
and you've worked as an agent. Sometimes those bragging rights can be nice.
Yeah, I was. For us, it was the person closing the most tickets at the end of the day was always the winner of it all because you were able to show off in a way, which was interesting because I'm sure we had some tickets in the middle that where we didn't do a great job in the middle because we were going so fast in some cases. But yeah, I've seen that, and actually this make me think like Before that was your first job, like when you enter customer support and agent work like this? Was it your first job
Yeah,
or?
I mean, I had the first job I ever actually, like, I would say, like, first, like, semi-professional job I ever had was working for some man tech doing just renewals, just people
Hmm.
calling in. And I mean,
Yeah,
that was grueling. That was like 100, like
yeah,
110 calls a day.
yeah.
But the first like proper office job I actually had where I actually enjoyed it was a support role at a fintech company. I mean, that was probably
Okay.
when I was in my mid 20s. And so that's I'll say that was the first like true honest support role I enjoyed.
Yeah, okay. And what was I mean, was it difficult to transition to this role? Was there anything that you felt like, okay, this I don't get it yet. Basically, I still need time to actually fully master my knowledge and what I need to be able to master? Or
Actually, surprisingly, it wasn't.
okay.
What it was funny, what a client said to me one time, he's like, "Why do you think this way?" I'm like, "Well, what do you mean, what do I think what way?" He goes, "You're just very logical with the way you think about things, or like the way you ask me
Yeah.
questions." So it was just, I think people that are good in support are just kind of natural tinkerers, and they have that
Mm-hmm.
mindset that they want to know how things work. And so if you've always been that kind of person, I think that's why people like me or other people in sport just are naturally drawn to it. That's why I liked it, is because I just think support is just kind of like a daily puzzle, right? And so that's
Yeah.
why I kept coming back to it. And that's why, even though I was new to the product, the whole like thought process wasn't new to me. So that's why I think I just kind of liked it from the start.
Yeah, and this makes me think because what you're saying is this is part of your personality, basically, this way of
Yeah.
working and thinking and so on. But how, like from your own experience after the agent phase and becoming more of a manager, leader kind of thing, how how much of this can you, or do you feel like is trainable to someone? Like, because some of it is really super profound kind of way personality is made. Of course, there are knowledge, there are skills that you can refine, but how much do you think you can really train?
I think there's some things that you can definitely train, like hard skills are definitely stuff you can train, like how do you look at logs? How do you replicate an issue, something like that, right? But I think one of the areas that I see a lot of people struggle with, and it is really hard to train some people, is the soft skills. I mean, you
Hmm.
probably know this as well. Like, soft skills are probably one of the most important skills you
Hmm.
need when you're working
Yeah,
as a
yeah,
frontline support person. I mean,
yeah,
because you just can't be rude to somebody like, "What's your problem?" or like, "What are you doing?" Like, you have to approach people with a softness, soft skills.
yeah,
Lots of
yeah,
words right here, but yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things is just like telling people just be a little gentle, don't be so rough around the edges. And that's one area that I actually needed coaching when I first started, because I remember one of my managers when I first started, she goes, "You're way too blunt with customers." And so that was something that definitely I needed to smooth out along the way for myself also.
okay. And how did that look like back then when you were an agent, training and coaching? How did that happen?
She, was really helpful. And I think she was the basis for some of my managerial style, is that she would pull me off to the side and she would look at ticket examples with me and she would say, "Okay, here's your response. Technically, that's right, but
Hmm.
how could you say it in a nicer way or a more gentle way?" And we kind of role play like that. And I think that, I still use that technique with a lot of people that I've coached and mentored. Is just, okay, you're right, but how can we go about it to make someone actually feel good when you give this answer? So I think that's
Yeah.
that's how I've done it.
Yeah, that's perfect. Because the thing is that's the ideal coaching way of I mean that's what I would have loved my manager to do. But the thing is, as we were saying just before starting the record, like if you have someone that didn't experience being an agent, didn't take thousands of calls like we did, I think that's something that's the kind of deep coaching that you cannot get from a manager that didn't experience it. And I think also it's rare to have those kind of manager and because it's also a skill to have this possibility to take someone from the side and say, okay, this was right, but how can you say it a bit differently and maybe show you the feedback the right way also. So I think that that's why also training and and coaching is so hard, and it's actually something where we are sometimes lacking the right tools also to help agents, I would say.
You know, I completely agree. I mean, one thing that I've seen a lot of people struggle with when they first start their career, they first start in support is, just asking for help when they're
Mhm.
working through tickets or they're, and, sometimes they just don't know who to go to for help. They can go to maybe the person sitting next to them back the pre-pandemic days. But that's, what I was also saying to you before the recording. That's why I think the best leaders are people that have done the job themselves, because then they can sit down with someone who's struggling and work through a ticket with them and say, okay, what do you think the client's asking? What first comes to mind? What would be your response? And then if you have a manager who's actually done it, you can do that kind of coaching and mentoring where the person comes to the answer themselves. You're not
Yeah,
spoon feeding them. But then also from like when you look at from the agent side, when they look at that manager, they're like, hey, this person actually cares about me. They've done the job, they know the hardships, but then they want to lift me up because they know where I've been. So I think if you like it, if you are in a frontline person, that's what I would want as a manager, someone who actually can like empathize with me on the day-to-day grind of the job.
yeah, exactly. And that's what I think sometimes customers have a hard time to understand, because sometimes indeed you have frontline people that are having a bad day, and I think for me the most eye-opening was actually to start going on Reddit and follow some of the threads, like where I see a lot of agents. Some of them are here to vent, but you can, if you scratch a little bit, you can really see that they are basically, like you were saying, asking for help, and I think it's just that they don't have the right support from managers or from the structure that they're working in, and they don't have the right training. I've even seen some agents saying, basically, I had 2 days of training. One was to learn the tools. Second one was me reading tons of docs on how I should be able to handle any kind of process and follow the SOPs and so on. And then day three, I was live and I was answering customers. And she was basically saying, I'm lost, I'm not feeling confident and so on. And that's what is a bit crushing sometimes, just that I think some companies are not investing in the right way, in the right training, in the right coaching. And then, of course, they are burning a crazy amount of agents that would be amazing agents, I think. But it's just that, yeah, it's not set up the right way, basically. And it's basically, from my perspective, training is broken in most cases. And
I
that's a really difficult topic.
I completely agree. I mean, if I think back at most of the support roles I've been in, I mean, the longest training I ever had was actually that first job I got in support, and that was like what? That was almost 2 months of training.
Hmm.
And I mean, and still, even by the time you got done with that, you were still kind of like, what the heck am I doing when tickets started to come in?
Yeah.
But I mean, it feels like in a lot of support roles, it's kind of sink or swim. I mean, which is it's for a role that's the face of the company and it's the first contact with clients. That's just mind-boggling, honestly. I mean, so how you can put people in that situation?
Yeah. Yeah, it's super true. Super true. How long do you think it took you personally in your first agent job to feel like confident? Personally, it took me, I would say, 9 months to feel
You
like,
know,
okay, now.
yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, in every company I've worked at, it's been about 9 months for every
Mhm.
platform I worked at because I've worked in just platforms that are very complex, very deep. And so I think that's usually a very good one because what I usually tell people when I work at these companies is 6 months is when you'll like kind of scratch the surface and you're like, I kind of feel like I know what I'm doing here. 9 months,
Mhm.
you're like, okay, I can finally fly solo. And then 1 year is like, okay, now I can help other people.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I think that's the timeline. But yeah, I think that's
yeah.
about right.
Thanks, fair. Cool. So what, I mean, how the evolution from being agent to becoming, like, I think you've done some training, but basically became a leader, manager in customer support, and I think you worked on many different support operation strategies. I mean, you're more high level now, like in your approach to customer support. Like, how does it look like the path from this first job of basically closing ticket to where you are now? Like, what is the evolution that you followed?
I mean, for me, it kind of felt like a natural evolution. It was just first take tickets, first just be someone who feels like they can do the job. But then the better I got at each position, each company, I naturally felt like I wanted to mentor people and train people, and I did that at every company. And then eventually I thought, okay, for me, I realized I didn't want to go down the very technical IC route. I realized that I wanted to go more the other path. And so that's, for me, it was, always being a mentor, always being a coach, but then just letting my leadership know I had aspirations to go up the leadership route. And then when an opportunity came along, I was able to be promoted from within. And the thing I say to people that have that aspiration that are growing is just you just need to make your goals very clear along the
Yeah,
way. But I think the other thing that I'd have to say is that once you become a leader or a manager, you're always still in support. You just go from supporting external clients to internal clients, if that makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah,
You're still supporting people that are reporting to you. So it's always
yeah.
that mind frame of how can I help someone?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what makes us tick, I would say, what makes us happy, I would say, also in our job. I mean, personally, I know that actually it's more personal, but my wife knows that my love language is more me doing something for someone. I'm not gonna say things, basically. I'm not a man of word or something, but I'm gonna do something for you because I know it's making you, it makes something easier for you or something. And I think it's the same also
Exactly.
in my career also. That's what I'm looking at. Um, yeah, okay, so then you went this coaching route, like mentoring people and those kind of thing. Is there, I don't know, one story or one person that you worked with that you remember as, I don't know if heartwarming is the right word or whatever, but one thing that you hold in your memory as a great achievement or someone that you maybe pushed up through your coaching and everything?
I don't know if he'll agree with me when I state this. So, but there was a guy at two companies ago where he had been at one job for a while, and when he applied to the company I was at, I could definitely tell that he was looking for a shift.
Yeah.
He was one of the first people I mentored at that company, and I think one of the things that I felt proud of was that I could mentor him when I was in IC and he came on, and then when he transitioned into a leadership role, I was there to
Hmm.
mentor him again but on
Okay.
a different set of skills. So, I was
Yeah.
able to mentor him on the IC set of skills and then the manager set of skills. So that felt really good to me because I could, like just continuously help him evolve. But it was kind of funny that I remember one time I went out and got drinks with him when he was still an IC and I was still a manager. So I had to be very guarded on how I spoke
Yeah.
to him. But
Yeah.
then once he came a mentor, I'm like, okay, now we can speak on the same level again. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's something funny about that. I'm curious to your thoughts on this. Is that what do you see as some of the challenges of when people go from being an IC to a manager, and then how their previous peers now have to interact with them because they're no longer actual peers? One is a people
Yeah.
manager, and the other people are still IC.
Yeah, that so in my case actually didn't went purely internally. I mean, my me growing into a management position was not inside my initial company, was when I was an agent. I had the occasion of becoming not per se a team lead, but do some work around workflow management and things like this. So I was technically handling the team. So I was a bit working as the police inside the team, but I was not per se a manager. So I didn't have any kind of personal development plan or one-on-one with agents or anything like this. So I didn't really see this inside my team when where I was an agent. But I felt it in my following job, where basically I joined the scale up. I took over the customer support department there. And without saying that I put a wall, it was really difficult for me to just come in and say, okay, I know what you guys are doing because you are agents, you are reporting to me. And it was difficult at the beginning to actually keep this proximity with those agents that were now a part of my department, because I felt like we can be super close because I know what you're doing, I've done it before, and so on. And I think it's also super cultural because, like, I'm French. I started in a US company because I was working at Google, so it was a really specific culture also. But I was inside this company, I was part of a French company team basically, so it was also super French culture inside it. And then I went to this company here where I took the head of the department, where it's a Dutch company, and I'm actually the only one speaking English because no, I don't speak Dutch, and most of the operation were done in English anyway. So I think it's always a balance to find. I don't have an answer to that, but for me, it was always I've always tried, even in this second company, to show them that I knew that it was just, I was not just about speaking and you have to say that, you have to do that, or you have to say that in this thing. And I was always trying to show them through cases or tickets that I handled in the past. This is something that happened to me. This is how I handled it. And I was always trying to give as much context as possible so they can try to, yeah, transfer that to their situation, even though it was really different because I was in B2B. In this case, it was B2. There are so many different aspects of it, but I wouldn't say I found the answer, but I've tried to use my own experience and showing it through all those examples, so they could understand that we are basically the same. Okay, I'm your manager, but I've gone through the same thing as you, and my what would make me the most happy would be for you guys to follow my path. And I know not everyone wants to follow my path because not everyone wants to become a manager. But if I can help you get there because that's what you're looking for, I want us to collaborate really closely. But it was difficult, to be honest, because of that. And suddenly you are the manager, so suddenly you don't have, and especially in my case, I was an international, so suddenly you don't have your peers to even just have lunch together because yeah, it's a bit weird to have lunch with the agents. I remember when I was an agent, you don't speak about the same thing when your manager is here than when you are there.
Exactly.
And sometimes you also need those time to actually vent about things, about processes that are broken. And I think it's actually fair and normal, but I just always try to make them understand that's okay for them to challenge me on stuff, but you need to come up with a solution. I don't want to hear people saying this is broken and not have a better alternative to it. Like that's what I've tried to make them understand. I think some things are broken for sure and there are better ways to do it, and some things are just the way things are, and sometimes there are policies that sign might be annoying, but we have to respect some rules sometimes, and that's also the reality, and you have to compose with it. So thanks for the question. It's interesting. I don't have the answer. I think it's a balance. I think it's depending on the culture, depending on the your own experience and everything, but for sure I think my own experience as an agent helped me a bit understand what they are going through and the difficulty of the job.
That's a good answer.
Great. And because we're already trying to stay to the 25 minutes, 30 minute kind of mark, but with all your experience, like, and what you have seen both as a manager, as an agent, like, what what do you wish you would have been able to other leaders in CX or support know or understood better about what the agent experience is and what it is not actually. Do you see what I mean? Like, is sometimes it's a
Yeah.
bit blurry what is behind the work of an agent, and
I think that, I mean, there's a lot of like obvious answers, but I think I'm going to stick to this one is that I think what leaders need to know is that support agents aren't just there putting out fires. They aren't just there answering tickets. I mean, support people are sometimes they're an account manager because they're trying to make sure the client's happy with the product. They're maybe even trying to do an upsell inadvertently, or they're trying to gauge the temperature. They're trying to say, okay, how is this person using the product correctly? I don't think people understand that people in support roles really have to touch, a little bit of almost so many multiple roles, and they have to juggle it in such a way that one, they don't make the client angry, but then rarely do support people in front lines get any recognition when they do something that actually uplifts the company, right? Or that makes a person a champion in the software. They find a vulnerable bug. That there's so many things that support needs to get recognition for that they rarely
Mhm.
do. And I think that's the thing that I would love to see at more companies is that support would get more recognition because whenever you go to any of these kickoff events or anything, the salespeople get celebrated, marketing, blah, blah, blah. But then it's like this much. Oh, by the way, support did this. Hooray. I just wish companies would celebrate support more.
Yeah. I think it's a common theme that we see in a lot of companies, unfortunately. But that resonates also a lot, and I think that's also it's super easy to put in place, and just even if it's just a kudo or awards or whatever, it makes a huge difference. So they know that they have an impact. Great. So what is the next step for you then? Because I think you are on the hunt a little bit, or you're looking open to work.
Yeah, I've been looking for a new role since the start of the year. To put a sports metaphor to it, I'm a free agent right now, and so just seeing the next fit for me. I mean, really just looking for another manager, senior manager, maybe head of support at a smaller company. Even an IC role, where it's like first support person in the company. That's kind of what I'm looking for, to kind of just tie this into this theme about being a manager who knows what people are going through. I think my next ideal position would be a player coach, just so I can know what the product is, know how to empathize with people. But I mean, ultimately, I would love to, do that, but then rise above and get to some more strategic planning, which is in some of
Yeah,
those higher positions. But
yeah.
absolutely, I mean, so that's where I kind of see myself going right now.
Because I was actually part of a layoff round before I launched my own company and everything. I've done a bit of freelancing, but I've seen how hard it can be at the moment. But I'm sure with all your experience and everything, I'm sure you will find a good place. And if anyone can help, please do. Where do we reach out? Like on LinkedIn, I guess, the easiest to find
LinkedIn's a
you.
great LinkedIn is a great place. I mean, I would put my email address here, but I don't want tons of bots flying in.
Uh,
Possibly, I think LinkedIn is probably the best place to get in contact with me.
Perfect. Thanks, Andre. Thanks for all the super interesting stories and what you went through. I think yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Like people that have been on the front lines. How do you see the development of customer support and so on? And maybe I don't know. Maybe we'll have a second episode at some point. Hopefully, we'll have a new position, exciting with new things that you will be able to share in a few months. Let's see.
Yeah,
So yeah, all the
hopefully.
best and hope to stay in touch. Thanks again. Thanks everyone and have a great day.
All right. Bye, everyone.